Hey everyone. So Revit 2025 came out about, I don't know, 2 months ago now, maybe less than that. And along with that came a brand new package of Dynamo and some new features and some new technical features as well in the back end. And so, of course, I had to bring on our local Dynamo expert to come in and chat about it. And so I'm excited for this episode. If you guys haven't dug into the new features of Dynamo for Revit 2025, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, let's jump right in and I'll introduce our guest in 1 minute. All right, everyone, welcome. Let me lower the intro music so you guys can hear me. Welcome to episode 113 of BIM After Dark Live. As I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about Revit 2025 and more specifically, Dynamo and the new features that are packaged with it. And before I introduce our guest, for those of you that are here for the first time, this is a weekly live stream that we talk about Revit, BIM, and any associated technologies with architecture, engineering, and construction. And we are live, so it's 9:06 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're in the chat, feel free to ask some questions and I'll feed it along to the conversation. And definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube and hit the little thumbs up for the like. We're working our way. You can't see it because it's a little blurred out, but we're at 88,000 subscribers. Goal is 100,000. I really want there to be a plaque on the wall right here for you guys. I think that'd be really cool. Really the only reason why I want to hit 100,000. So we have 12,000 more to go. So help me get that plaque one day. And of course, if you're here in the future, maybe tomorrow, maybe a week from now, thanks for joining us and definitely feel free to comment below. So let me ditch out the music so people can hear you. And I'm going to introduce our guest today, Mr. John Pierson. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. We were talking about it before we went live that it was since 2023 that I've been on here. So
yeah, the release of
excited to be
Revit
back.
2023. So
Yeah, specifically. I think it came out like
Yeah.
the night before.
yeah. And I don't remember if we planned on doing that or not. I'm not even sure what we plan on doing, but welcome
Yeah.
back to the show. I appreciate it. And you're also checking the box of the informal requirement, apparently, of this live stream that every season I need at least one member from Parallax team to join the show. And
Oh,
so,
cool.
so somehow it always tends to happen. And so welcome back. And you're filling the void for the spring season of the Parallax team. So welcome
Very
back,
cool.
John. Maybe for folks who don't know who you are, maybe give them a quick overview of yourself and how you got to be on here talking about Dynamo.
For sure. Yeah, so my name's John Pierson. I've been in this like Revit world since around 2013, 2012, 2013. Specifically, I started using Dynamo in 2013. I opened it and immediately closed it because it scared the heck out of me. Back then, it was in Revit 23, Revit 13. Sorry. And it was all the nodes were already yellow. That was the default color of Dynamo. So it was already scary. And then everything started turning red on me. And I was like, I'm never going to learn how to use this. I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And I closed it. Fast forward to 2014, I went to a conference called Autodesk University, learned Dynamo there from a guy named Marcelo Scamboluri, and kind of just started building things from there. A lot of people know me because I build Dynamo packages. So I built a package called Rhythm and a package called Monocle as well, which I'll show some of today for Dynamo. And I started building Rhythm in 2015. So right after I learned Dynamo, I was really excited about all this stuff, all these things you tend to complain about in Revit. I got really excited to automate that, so I started bundling it as a package pretty quickly. And I was at an architecture firm at the time, so lots of opportunities to automate things when you're sitting there in the firm listening to people complain about Revit. So I've been at Parallax team. We're a BIM consultant for 6 years now. So I joined Aaron back in 2018. Um, at his, we were the only two, and 6 years later, there's like five of us now or something, and it's just we've grown as a team, and it's been really cool. And now my day to day, instead of being like someone who's in Revit primarily, I'm in Dynamo or the Revit API quite a bit.
Mhm.
My training is as a drafter. So when I first started in this industry, I have a 2-year degree, and I was hired as a BIM person at an architecture firm. So I'm not an architect. And when I started to learn automation, I went on to learn coding and everything like that. So that's kind of another little part of me that people ask about pretty often. I always feel like it's cool to share too.
Awesome. Yeah. And anybody who is in the process of learning Dynamo or uses Dynamo, you probably find yourself on the Dynamo forums, and you've also been active on those for a long time. So you may even had a question where John P answered, and that's John P that you're talking to right here, and of course you're also always willing to help anyone who really reaches out. So I appreciate that. You've helped me many times when I'm stuck on some sort of a Dynamo thing, and usually it's no, you can't do that yet because the API doesn't allow it. But then sometimes you help me get over it, which is great. So I'm excited to jump into some of the new stuff and what's going on, and especially with this 2025 release. So maybe with that, I think, and again, guys, if you have questions in the chat, I will keep an eye on it as we go along. Maybe with that, let's just start with sort of the core of everything, which is this .NET framework update, and give us maybe a little idea of what that means for us lay people who aren't coding and with a portrait monitor like you are, and and maybe what that means for us as normal Dynamo users and not under the hood guys.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, if anyone has any questions at all, feel free to add them. And if we get sidetracked, I'm fine with that too. Just because there's only so much that's kind of changed between the years, right? 2024 to 2025, it looks the same. I mean, that's going to be the first thing that riles a lot of people up. But like you mentioned, Jeff, one of the biggest changes is the underlying framework of the code within Revit. So all of the years previous to Revit 2025, we've been in a framework called .NET framework. Specifically, we've been in a framework called .NET Framework 4.8 most recently. That's a Microsoft framework. So a lot of times when people complain about slowness or things like that with Dynamo or Revit, you can blame Microsoft partly. With Revit 2025, Autodesk decided to finally migrate to something a bit more modern. Specifically, that is .NET 8. So there's no word framework in there. It's just .NET 8. It used to be called .NET Core as well. And Dynamo is really cool because they kind of gave us a heads up about this pretty early on. So as you know, Revit comes out generally around April or so every year, roughly. Don't make purchasing decisions, I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, usually it is around April. We don't.
Yeah.
We're not giving anything away. I think everyone knows. But
But yeah, so back last year, Dynamo started building a version, Dynamo 3.0, that was based on .NET 8. On the forums, everyone was like, whoa, what does that mean? You know, because Dynamo has a few different flavors, if you will. So we have Dynamo Revit, Dynamo for Civil 3D, Dynamo for Forma now, and then we have Dynamo Core. Core is kind of the middle ground for all of the different integrations. Back last year in 2023, they were like, we're moving to .NET 6 at the time. And we're like, whoa, that's weird. And then they warned us that that was changing, so they had some builds that changed. And then they came out with a .NET 8 build as well. A lot of that was kind of giving hints as to what was on the horizon, which was .NET 8 for Revit as well. And why that's really important is just first and foremost, .NET 8 is a bit more modern. It's a more modern framework that's going to be faster, has a lot of features, and you could really, really nerd out on all the ins and outs of it quite a bit. But generally, it's going to be faster, more cross-compatible, and things like that. So it's just a more stable kind of thing. And when we jump from .NET Framework 4.8 to .NET 8, it breaks a lot of things as well. So the Dynamo team was really cool, giving us heads up as package authors about this. And they did that on the forum that you mentioned earlier. So for anyone watching, if you're not on the Dynamo forum, go get on the forum because there's a wealth there's a huge array of knowledge on the forum, and you get kind of prompted when things might be coming out. So that's kind of the other big part is if you're a package author and you were on here, you saw that coming in the pipeline and you were able to prepare for it. Unfortunately, not every Dynamo package that's out there isn't updated for Revit 2025 yet, and we'll look at that here in Revit in a moment. But yeah, it's basically there's a line in the sand for pretty much anything that was built for Revit 24 or earlier and Revit 25 or later, which if you've been a Dynamo user for a while, one of its biggest strengths is I could build a Dynamo graph that generally works between 2 or 3 Revit versions, right? Like for the most part, it's like, oh, yeah, I have this parameter that updates this graph that updates my comments parameters on my walls. It'll probably work between most versions. Generally now, when you make the jump between those versions, you just kind of got to double check things now, specifically if you use C# as well. So yeah, that's kind of like I said,
on that note, I
links.
think one thing for people maybe that aren't familiar too with the concept of packages and whatnot, I think maybe give somebody an idea of what a package is, and then also, like you said, sort of a disclaimer on when you're using them to build your graphs, like you just mentioned there, the sort of open source idea and being a little cautious maybe about what that means moving forward and whatnot.
Yeah, so within Dynamo, so I have Dynamo open on the screen now. We have our whole node library on the left, right? And then we have this add-ons category here on the bottom. By default, it comes with some add-ons already. I complain about this every year, but these are out-of-the-box nodes that come with Revit. And for whatever reason, they're in the add-on area.
I was just going to say, why? Yeah.
So your Dynamo's never clean anymore. It already has stuff. So this drives me crazy, and I bring it up every year, and it's still there. And these might have migrated from an old version of Dynamo for me. I don't know, but they're still here, which is odd. But generally, there's nothing in here. So we have this add-ons category. If you go to packages, and this is in Revit 2025/Dynamo 3.0 now, package manager, which has changed, you now have this whole UI to choose from. Each one of these packages is like little plugins to Dynamo now. So if you want to start to download things to add functions to your Dynamo install or your Revit install, you can do that. Once again, I said that I manage one called Rhythm. All you need to do for something like Rhythm is you just come in and hit this install button, click OK, and you're good to go. Rhythm has a little window that flashes, and that's because it's downloading the version for your Revit version. So from August of 2023 until about February of 2024, I put a ton of effort into making sure Rhythm loads for the correct Revit version. It's just this weird thing to where with Dynamo, as a Dynamo user, when you're installing packages, you tend to come in and say, oh, install, I'll click install and I'm good. It's a little bit harder than that for some packages because you do need to be specific. Once again, these are add-ons to Dynamo. So I'll search for another one that's really popular that we use quite a bit at Parallax as well. It's called archilab.net. Really good package if you work in Revit. It's one of the most downloaded, if not the most downloaded now. I think it overtook Lunchbox recently. This package is really nice, but you don't want to click this install button. You actually need to come in and pick whichever one ends with the Revit version that you're working with. So you see how it says 1024, 1722. That 24 is going to be important. So at this time, from what I can tell, Archilab doesn't work in 2025. And that's not like a bash on Conrad or anything. That's just pointing out how his versioning works. So you'd have to come in and pick the one that works for you. So in this case, 24, I would pick that one. 23, I'd pick one of these, probably the most recent one. 22, the most recent, and so on. You have to think about that, though. And I don't really like that interaction. So I've kind of worked around that with Rhythm. But yeah, this is how you install packages, generally speaking. Other ones are like Clockwork. That's a really great one to install. That does work as well. That's one that you should just have too. Clockwork, a lot of its nodes recently became out-of-the-box nodes too. So that's another thing that happens pretty often.
That's not a bad thing, right?
No. So yeah, it's actually... Someone asked me that once. They're like, "Are you offended if they copy your nodes?" And I'm like, "No, because it's really cool that you made something that they saw worth adding
Right. And then you don't have
to
to update it
Dynamo,
anymore, right?
and then I don't have to deal with it." So
Let
it's
them
totally
update
like,
it, right?
exactly, it's their problem now, right?
Awesome.
A
So
good example is like this Sheets node used to be in Rhythm, and now it's an out-of-the-box Dynamo.
yeah, that's awesome. So the .NET 8 transition, not too much or it shouldn't be too much of a change for us normal Dynamo users, other than more stable, probably faster, and then you have the ability to do a little more on the back end, right? So there's not much more we need to
For
know about
sure.
that. And then
Yeah,
I
so
guess,
faster is the big thing. Like with Dynamo specifically,
hmm
the draw speed, like if you have a big Dynamo graph with a lot of nodes, it used to take a minute to render. It renders faster now. So that's a really big gain in itself.
got it. Is so since we're on the idea of packages, maybe before we jump into like new nodes and some of those things. I mean, what else on the package front? Again, not that everyone on here is package creators, but maybe just some things we should know about. It is one of those things as a Dynamo user and not a package creator or anyone who dives into it. It is one of those things that over the years is always, I think it's evolved, but it's always been also a frustration, right? Because like you said, version after version after version. I mean, I just the other day I was opening up a script from 2017, 18 that I wrote, and like trying to figure out if I can use this in the new, and like the effort that it took for me to go through node by node and package by package and figure out what package it was in, where the node was breaking, that thing. It was almost like I should just start again, you know? And
Yeah.
so I mean, on the general front, you know, what's changed as far as packages are concerned, other than that nice UI you mentioned and some of the other things?
Yeah, so another thing, and we can link it in the notes after this episode too,
Sure.
is upgrading graphs is something that needs done for certain nodes. It depends on what nodes you have in the graph. So I have an older version of Dynamo open too with the the gray nodes.
Yep.
These nodes are way smaller. So if you are a firm that's kind of paused on updating to some of the newer versions of Revit, in Revit 2023 we got these new nodes that are like this dark gray. They're different sizes. So like you'll upgrade graphs from one version to another and your nodes are now overlapping and things like that. So that's
Yeah.
something that still catches people pretty often if you just upgrade a graph from 2017 or whatever.
Yes.
So speaking of packages specifically, this one will work in Revit 24 and older. So that's kind of one of the things is there is a graph migration assistant. So if we look for migration, there's a tool that I actually worked on for the Dynamo team that helps you update Dynamo graphs from
Interesting.
Revit 22 and older to Revit 23 and newer. I don't believe it will work in Revit 25. It might, but it is targeting Revit 24 or Dynamo 2.0 APIs. See, it's from October, so this one wouldn't.
So what does that do? It'll take, it's a node that you drop in and it gives you an idea of
Yeah, so I can
of some
actually
things.
fire it up here in
Oh, sure.
tune.19, so I can open that up as well. I have like every Dynamo version installed on my machine.
You got every 3-day build on there, just loads and loads of dynamos.
I tend to download the big ones, so like 216, 219, 3.1, right? So like just as a package author, there's all these weird little gotchas always, right?
Of course.
And then one funny thing I can show here in 2.19 is this package situation is already different. There's search for a package and it looks different. That's changed like 3 times in the last year or two, which is like they're trying to make it better, but it's like so like confusing after a while. So yeah, we'll install the Graph Migration Assistant. It's actually a view extension for Dynamo. So if you go to
Okay.
extensions and click on the extension, excuse me. It'll actually show it in a window on the side. So let's see. Yeah, so you pick a target folder and a source folder, and you can actually export out all your Dynamo graphs updated for you. And you can pick which Revit version you're targeting or anything like that. So it'll change the size of the graph, it'll replace nodes, it'll do all sorts of stuff like that. So this tool is available to you on the package manager.
Will that also do custom packages, or will it just tell you?
So it won't do custom packages at this point. It will upgrade the graph, and some packages just work between versions. So generally speaking, between Revit 22 and Revit 24 4. Most packages are going to work between those versions. So that's one thing that kind of just works. Something like Archilab might be a bit more specific, though.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. All right. So
But
I
yeah,
think
that's a tool available.
Yeah. No, I had no idea that existed. That's super neat. That was called the Migration Assistant. You just search for it in packages.
Yep. So the Dynamo Graph Migration Assistant.
Sweet. All right. So what we'll do, I think, is maybe take a quick break. When we get back, we will talk about maybe some new nodes and what, those kind of things that came into play. So what I wanted to do quickly was just take a moment to recognize the BIM After Dark community who is supporting this season of BIM After Dark live. And so for those of you that don't know what the community is, there's a short little video from one of our members, Jerry, about the community and what you can get as a member.
Hi, my name's Jerry Piscucci. I'm the BIM manager at Irwin and Layton. I've joined the community to learn some extra tips and tricks. Been working in Revit since 2010. I've been attached to Revit for a long time, always trying to push the envelope, learn more, do more, get more out of it. For Irwin and Layton, I do a lot of project coordination using Navisworks. When you announced that you were starting the community, I was really excited about that. I've been subscribed ever since you started the community. I feel like it's just a great resource to have between just getting answers from you, also having the entire community to be able to answer questions as well. Training tutorials I watch over and over again. They're just a great resource to have. And on top of that, all of the template files and sample files. At one point I had a question, how to make a jack arch. And I reached out, Jeff provided me with a video, and I couldn't get the pattern to align along the arch. With Jeff's video and additional help, I was able to get this jack arch to be modeled in there perfectly.
All right, well, there you have it. Thanks, Jerry. So if you're interested in joining the BIM After Dark community, head on over to community.bimafterdark.com. As you saw from the little promo reel, you get full-length courses. Office hours, we have one next week. It's office hour 87, so it's pretty much every other week. And there's anywhere from 6 to 9 members on, and we're basically it's an Ask Me Anything. Sometimes members are answering, sometimes I am, and it seems to be a super popular event within the community. And then, of course, there's a social feed where you can ask questions. And there's some perks for live events, which you will be hearing about very shortly if you stay tuned to this channel and to all my social media stuff. So head on over to community.bimafterdark.com and come hang out with us over there. All right, so, John, we're back. And I think what we're going to do, I think I want to dig into a few of the newer nodes that are, I think, based on one is probably based on some of a new feature like the Toposolids, and I believe there's some other nice added nodes that we're getting here. So I don't know if you want to start with Toposolids, if you want to start with links or what.
Yeah, so I mean, Toposolids, well, generally when Revit adds features, they give us API access to them. And as plugin authors for Revit, you can start to use those pretty quickly. Dynamo lagged a bit behind these last few years, so Toposolid nodes weren't in there. They were introduced in Revit 23, Toposolids, right?
I think one of the updates. No, I think it was only 24. I don't think they even had.
Was it 24? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there was a web update for 23 that gave. I was thinking because sometimes they'll do the web updates and they have it, but I don't think Toposolids was definitely on the full release.
What I'll show in a minute will show why I'm confused right now too.
Okay.
But yeah, under the Revit bin in the library, so we're right here in the Revit bin. If we go to elements, we will see that we should come down here and have a Toposolid section now.
Nice.
The kind of hidden way to know if nodes are new within Dynamo is if they don't have an icon yet. So a lot of times they haven't created icons yet, so they just have the default Dynamo icon. So that's kind of what's right here. So we do see that we have all of these by outline points, type, and level. You can query it for points. For people who might not know, Toposolids in Revit are basically floors. They're a different subset of floors, but they let you do like site modeling. So you can start to cut these. These replace topography surfaces, and they're really nice. They do behave differently than topography surfaces, so people might have their feelings about that. But it is basically inheriting, which is the coding term, from floors. So they have a lot of the same API methods. So there's a few nodes in here, or a lack of nodes. So there are abilities to add points and things like that, and they just don't have nodes for them yet, but you can make them now. You can also get like a Toposolid type by a name. So if you want to create one, you can start to do that. So you can kind of take some curves, the points that shift it, the type, and the level to host it to. So you can actually build conversions in here as well. I kind of joked how I was a little bit confused, but in Revit, if you go to massing and site, you're able to create toposolids. You are not able to create topography surfaces anymore, right? That's been kind of gone now. They kind of let us create both at first, and then now we can't create the topography surface.
Right.
However, Revit migrates topo surfaces to toposolids for you. The API still lets you create topography surfaces. So in Dynamo, there still is a node to create a topography by points, which is kind of funny.
And it'll place
so
it as a
there.
topo surface, right?
Yeah, so it'll actually
And then you can
place a
convert it if you
topo
wanted to
surface.
Toposolid, right, after doing that.
Yeah, so
That's funny.
and I don't see that API leaving anytime soon
Yeah.
because I think they use it for like their underlying conversion of them. So like I picked Topo Solid just now, and it's actually showing it as a footprint roof, I think, unless it tab selected something else. Nope, there it is. It's a floor. Yeah, so it's showing it as a floor category, so don't let that scare you either. But yeah, we can start to query that for its points. Connect it. Did I pick the wrong? I tab selected and I bet it picked. There we go. No. Uh-oh. I thought this was a topo solid.
I think
Am I
that should be a
wrong?
floor.
Is this the roof?
I think it's just a floor.
Oh, is it just a floor?
I think so.
Which one's a topo solid in this dang model?
I don't know.
Oh, man. Okay. I picked the wrong one. Darn. Is this one a topo? They're all
They're
floors?
all floors up there.
I thought they upgraded those for this. Dang. And then this one's going to be a linked one. That's a topo solid. Maybe we'll show the link nodes for it then. Yeah, this model was made back before
I was gonna say that
Toposolids.
that was made before Toposolids. Yes, it started the
Yeah.
process of building it was before
Dang,
Toposolids.
that stinks. Okay. So I was going to create a topo surface from a topo solid. So go the other way around, and I kind of messed that up. Darn. Oh, well. So we'll do that with the linked nodes in a minute. We can get the floor points and then create a topography surface from
There you
those
go.
points, though. So, yeah, there you go. So you could still create a topography with the API. So there's a topography in there now. If you really, really want topographies, I guess. I
That's
don't know.
kind of interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, I guess if you really, really were in love with them still, but you had to be forced to upgrade.
You're that hooked on them. I don't know what all you can do with them yet. Still, I think it's limited, I imagine.
Right, because now you lost all the other tools, unless they're still in the API,
Yeah.
still in the Dynamo API. No, that's
Yeah,
cool,
they're
and
probably
that
still.
and that makes sense. So yeah, so I know I was just reading some of the Topo Solid notes, and it all kind of makes sense there. So yeah, I guess let's jump into maybe I'm super excited to learn what's new with links because I didn't look into it, but that is one of
Yeah.
those things that I've always found some limitations in links, but also wanted a lot of things in links. So I'm hoping that maybe what you show us is some of the things that I wanted. We'll see.
For sure. So yeah, like in the sample model, it's really nice because there are several linked files. So there is a new node called get link instances. It takes a document input. So if we're in the document category under application in the Revit bin, we get the current files. This is my current Revit document. I can get all the links in my document, which is pretty cool. You can also just use a select model element to select them, which is fine too. And that provides access to all of those. So under elements, we have a whole new category in here called link instance. And this has all elements at level, all elements of category, all elements of category and view. A lot of these collectors that whenever we started using Dynamo, I think most of us did this. So if you do all elements of category, you're like, I want to get the ones from a link with this node. And it's like, yeah, good luck, buddy. You're not going to, like it just doesn't do that. It does it for your current file. Yeah. So that was one of those things, those gotchas for a lot of people because we work with links a lot. That just kind of, these aren't linked walls.
Right.
These are the ones that are placed in my model. So people are like, how do I tell this to look at the link file? That's the fun part. You don't, like that's always how those are. So now we have access to that with link instance. So I'll probably be a bit more specific with this selection. I think the facades are a linked file in this model. You would think I would have spent more time in this model. Yeah, maybe we'll do floors. So we'll just do a select model element. There it is. Then we'll just pick this link. Then we should have a link instance. So this has a link instance input and then a category input. We'll see if there's any walls in that link. I don't know if there is. Cool. And then we'll hover and yeah, evidently we have 10 walls in that link.
There you go.
So these are link elements now. And they have the green element ID for you to be able to click on, and it should try to center the view roughly on those things. So that's what that green element ID is still going to do for us. So really nice because custom packages have had nodes like this for a while. Spring Nodes is one that comes to mind for collecting link elements, but he didn't have this same kind of interaction as well because we were kind of working around what we had, right? So now those are out of the box. So if you have any old graphs that work with links that use rhythm nodes or spring nodes, you can now migrate those to out of the box nodes. That's another thing, a QA thing if you upgrade some graphs potentially.
And so
yeah.
I'm reading the other ones there. Elements of class, name, title. So are these just different ways to filter out what you're grabbing for elements?
Yeah. So the link instance, I kind of just got a I did a select model element, but if you want to be really specific, you can select it by the title of the. It's funny that they use title. I'll talk about that in a second, or by the name of the link. So whatever the link's named, right here, if you were to type that in. And I'm not positive if they want you to type it with all of that or not. It'll pick that one exactly. So it's like a really hard-coded way to pick a link, which is nice because if you use something like placeholder links in your template, like we do at Parallax, you can actually hard-code that in to swap links or something like that. So there's really cool options there. And if you use Dynamo Player, even better because a string or text input will stay a little more solid than a select model element that might change, right? So that one's really cool by title or by name. By title's funny because like with Revit, if you're filtering files, it's really hard in the API to determine if it's from the hard disk on your machine, from a server, or from a cloud location. So a workaround that I've used for a long time and I used in my own link nodes was I would just match it based on the title that shows on your toolbar. So it's so funny to me that they actually have a by title. I don't know if I realized they had it. But that was a match that I used for my own nodes. So like I have a node called links, I think that's my node. I would actually match them by title because I didn't want to try to query like your hard disk and all this different stuff. So it was kind of the way that I did it too.
So what is all elements of class? What's class?
Yeah, so class is an interesting one. So if we do all elements of type in our search window, we'll see that it's showing me results that don't make any sense because the search is still not perfect. Just spoiler, the search still sucks. It's showing me some. All elements of class is what replaced all elements of type. A class in Revit is actually all of the things. So element classes used to be element types in Dynamo. In here are like wall types, legend types, all of the things that you think of as things in Revit. Element types made less sense actually at the end of the day because as Revit users, we start to think of types, as like
family types.
This is our type, yes. So class is a little more like C#y, like it relates more to how it is in the code. So that's what element types became. So if you have old graphs that had element types node, it migrates these for you actually.
Got it.
So if I wanted all my wall types, There's all my wall types.
Mm-hmm.
The big distinction here too is if you use all elements of category, that picks all placed elements in your Revit file. All elements of class or previously all elements of type picks all things that aren't placed. So all these wall types, they might be placed instances of them, but these are like Revit database elements. So these are wall types within my Revit file. So these aren't necessarily placed. I can work with these. To kind of like round out that thought, if I were to do categories, walls, I don't think wall types is a category, right? Yes, walls. If I were to do, I'm not going to do it. I was going to use the autocomplete, but it's going to like screw me over, so I'm not going to do that. So yeah, those are all my placed walls. If I were to do element type, there's a node in here to get the type from it. And I'm going to do unique items. This list should be smaller, so it's 51 wall types. These are the wall types that are actually in use. These are the wall types that just exist in the file. So that's the distinction between category and class.
Got it.
Yeah, and then you can actually, like, if you really wanted to build a graph out from this, you could be like set difference, and then these 10 or 19, whatever it is, aren't in use. So then I can say element.delete and get rid of all of them. So now you built like a wall type purger.
Nice.
You really wanted. Yeah, so delete all your stuff. That's another fairly new node as well. Oh, the stacked wall has some of those walls evidently, so it's not going to let me delete them all.
There you go.
Let me delete some.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think the more linked nodes, I think the better.
Yeah, the links are huge.
For sure.
Especially for like MEP people. So that was one thing that always came to our attention, like when we're teaching like at conferences. You always have an MEP person or a structural person like, I want to work with links. I need to get these things from the link. And we're like, I know, I'm sorry. It's like, and then it even gets more difficult if someone moved the freaking link.
Oh, of course.
So if you move the link and they're not origin and you do wall location, it will be off even though you align them manually because the transform of the link, these nodes take care of that for you. So they auto transform them to where they physically are in the model, not where they were linked in originally.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not. We don't want people moving links. Guys, don't move your links.
Yeah, we don't want anyone moving them, but
we
yeah.
don't want Dynamo to fix it if they move the links. Come on.
Yeah. If someone links it in and then they move it to the correct spot, if you don't use the transform, it'll show up in its original spot. So it's just like this whole headache.
One thing that I know a lot of people have been attempting to do in Dynamo when it comes to links is a limitation of Revit as well as if you want to multi-select elements through a link and then hide them, let's say, or something, or do something with them. There's just no good way to do that. And I can tell we're starting to get some stuff, but even this doesn't necessarily solve that, right? Because if right now you have to tab, select, control, tab, select, and hope you don't click the link again, right? If you want to not just select all columns, you want to select, these 12 items and hide them or do something with them. I'm assuming there's still nothing really that we can do about that.
I mean, we can try it real quick. So like, let's do active view. And then don't I have current somewhere? No, I deleted it, I guess.
Your current document before you.
The more nodes I place, the more nervous I get.
I know. You've got like 4 graphs running. Be careful, man.
So I don't know if that hit all those walls. We can look. Let's do something bigger like floors, I imagine, right? So let's do floors. Run it. It's pretending like it's hiding them, but I don't believe it is. Right?
Well, those might all be Toposolids now in this one. No?
Those son of a gun, right? Let's see. Earlier I wanted a Topo
the
solid.
site link is Toposolids, but the other is...
It's trying, but it's still not like wanting to. And that one, I think it's like that UI interaction. So with the link, you like go into an edit mode when you tab it, and then you're able to hide. So like if I were to so it's not really.
Yeah. And that again, it's not it's just one of those things that we've always been looking to do. If there's something that filters can only go so long if you're not the one creating the link, right? And so there's always that limitation of, is there some way to make it easier if I need to manually hide 6 items or 20 items instead of what you just did, right? The tab select, control select, and anyone who's done that knows that it's a nightmare when you're doing like 30 items even.
Well, then like to do like an element hide, like that would be kind of scary too at the same time.
Yeah, I get. That's kind of what I was wondering. Yeah.
And there is graphics, visibility graphics nodes now. So like, let's see. I have some in Rhythm. I know that like the API finally opened up a bit to where if we go to view, we are able to start to get our filters, but we are able to start to go into the visibility graphics nowadays too. I might not have it in there anymore, but the API did open up to where we can start to mess with this. So these actual Revit links display settings, that's what it's called. So that's probably what it's under. We're able to start to mess with those. However, we're not like able to hide things like on a category by category basis yet. We're mostly just a query if it's by host view or not. But they've started to add APIs for them, which is pretty like promising, because hopefully we can start to get that ability to go into these settings and start to change model categories and stuff with the API. So I know that's one that people have wanted for a while.
Yeah. I mean, there's obvious limitations through links where you can't change the link, but you know what you can grab from it, I guess, is where the benefits would lie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So hopefully that one gets added eventually too. But yeah, those link nodes are really big, and then they just have generally a few other nodes in here. I think they added some dimension stuff too to add more dimensions to your file. There's a few others. There's a whole link of release notes that we can add too.
Yeah, definitely. So there's another thing that you mentioned called panel nodes, and I'm curious what that's all
For
about.
Sure. Yeah, so if anyone watching has ever used Lunchbox for Dynamo, you probably used it for paneling workflows. So starting to segment down a surface into panels and kind of rationalize it. Lunchbox hasn't existed for Dynamo for quite a few years. And that's just because the Proving Ground team decided they wanted to focus more on Rhino and Grasshopper. Dynamo is hard to maintain things for, and specifically the issue they had was with the package manager back in 2019, 2018. When you download their package, it'd throw out all the nodes, and they couldn't fix it. So they started shipping an installer for it, and then eventually they've just prioritized Grasshopper and Rhino. Because their reasoning too is, and this is one of the questions that popped up, is if you want to use Lunchbox within Revit, you can use Rhino Inside with Grasshopper, which works. Rhino Inside's really cool. It's a really cool product. It lets you use Grasshopper within it. The Rhino Inside Revit, the nodes in Grasshopper are open source, which is great too. It's a different thing. It's another way to automate things, which is really cool. I just like having a lot of options, and Dynamo's built into Revit, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of why I started using Dynamo even. But yeah, so they kind of went to where they just used it within Grasshopper. But that left kind of a big gap within Dynamo. So surface paneling is not something that's easy to do with Dynamo. A lot of times people still do it in Grasshopper. When I was at an architecture firm, we actually had all these facades that were rationalized in Grasshopper, and I was kind of like the guy to come in and have to figure out how to bring that into Revit. And this was back in 2014, 2015, before stuff like Rhino Inside.
Right.
So we were streaming it to, at the time it was Flux. We were streaming geometry from Rhino to Flux back into Revit as direct shapes. It was crazy. Man, it was tough. There's a lot of easy ways to do that now. And now you can do paneling right within Dynamo. So yeah, if we kind of plug some of this stuff in and I kind of make it divided up more, you can start dividing a surface up by like diamonds. I probably cranked it really high. These are native Dynamo geometry now, so that's kind of cool. So it's really fast, and you will get a series of panel surfaces. So you can see how many panels you have. I have 445 diamond panels I just made really quickly, which is cool. And then you can get points from them, which is really cool for Revit users because I can place like an adaptive component on those points or a regular family with parameters. These nodes are in Dynamo 3.1. That's what I have open right now is Sandbox specifically. So you'll see that I don't have a Revit category in here because I opened Sandbox. Revit 2025.1 just came out recently, like this weekend.
Yeah, it was like I was just gonna say I noticed it Monday morning maybe or something. I got
that. So we should have the panel
although
notes,
I
right?
shouldn't say I got the thing because there's really no notification with the app. The app that you have to like check it. So I'm not sure what made me. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what made me look at it. But that is one thing that's interesting. They forced us to have this access tool, right, where it's there no matter what. But it doesn't even do anything unless you open it. Like it doesn't force any updates, whatever. Anyways, yes, 2025.1 was released, and I checked some of the release notes. There were some. Seems like there were some stability fixes and a few things. So I don't see why you wouldn't install it.
There were a few things in there. So naturally, we're like, oh man, Dynamo 3.1 has been out on the Dynamo builds page. Here, I'll show you the builds page. For people who might not know, if you want to try Sandbox, new versions of Dynamo on the fly, you can do that at dynamobuilds.com and download a zip. 3.1's been out since April 19th, right? Like, sweet. This Revit version just came out. We should have Dynamo 3.1. We don't. So we have Dynamo 3.0.3. So we don't have access to those panel nodes quite yet in this version. So if you go to geometry, there's no panel nodes. So it's kind of sad. There is a way, and I'll send you the link. I'm going to update the video, but you can force load a newer version of Dynamo into Revit. It's just really hacky, and I don't suggest anyone do it. But if you really, really want to try the panel nodes, you can. I actually did that for a GIF that I put on Twitter to where I actually showed the paneling happening in the sample model. So like back when this sample model came out, I was building Dynamo samples for it actually, and I wanted to build a wacky surface on this dome. And I was using lunchbox nodes, and then I was told I can't use package nodes for the out-of-the-box samples. So we got this thing. So now those will be out-of-the-box nodes, so maybe those will be updated with those panel nodes, which will be pretty cool.
No, that's cool.
So,
that's super neat.
But yeah, there's all sorts of panel nodes in here. So under geometry panel surface, we can do diagonals, hexagons, which are really cool. And they're all really fast because they're like Dynamo and Revit's geometry kernel.
Yeah.
So I just generated a whole list of hexagons really quick. You can do these on wavy surfaces too if you want, and all those things. So really cool nodes. I'm glad that they're in Dynamo now, and you don't have to depend on a package for them, and they use the native geometry kernel. And they are called panel surfaces, so it's like a distinct object type.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's one of those things where I always felt like the naturally people, when they see Dynamo, they think of Grasshopper, and then they immediately think of geometry creation. And it's like, for the longest time, you can create geometry in Dynamo, but the reality is it's been used for many other things and not necessarily as much for the geometry creation. So I like seeing that because it's interesting. Now you can maybe even start doing Grasshopper-y things, right? In native Revit and play with geometry creation within it, which is pretty neat.
Man, the panel surface nodes, like when they first kind of mentioned it, like on their GitHub and stuff, I was like, I have wanted these for like, man, it's been like 8-9 years. Like it's kind of crazy to think about. And like Lunchbox had them, so that like filled that need for a long time. Lunchbox is actually open source too, so like a lot of times when you mention that it's not available for Dynamo anymore, people get kind of worked up. But they open source the whole package, so if you want to build it yourself and load it in Dynamo, you still can. It's really easy actually. So it's really cool they did that, and yeah, Lunchbox and the work that Nate and his team did, they like paved a lot of the ground for a lot of the packages that even exist today, which is really cool.
That's awesome. Awesome, man. So was there anything that we wanted to talk about that we missed? I want to double check. I haven't even looked at the list of items we were looking at before. I think we hit a lot of it, right?
Yeah, and I think a big point to make for Revit 25 with the API, with Dynamo, with plugins, etc., is I know we've had it out for a little bit now, but it's kind of like a be patient kind of thing. Unless people are really, really on top of it, it's going to still be a little bit longer for some of these things. And that's just because it was a pretty big change. So some of the packages might not work quite yet. Some of the plugins might not work quite yet. One that, and I really like the plugin, PyRevit isn't out for Revit 2025 yet. And that's because of that big .NET 8 change. So the thing not to do is don't go on PyRevit's GitHub and say, why isn't this available for 2025? the thing to do is say, can I help test it in 2025? And then you start to try to contribute in that way.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those big things that changed, and we had a pretty quick turnaround to get these things fixed. A lot of the plugins that we have at Parallax, so like we have our color code tabs, that works in 2025. But there are some plugins that of our own that haven't been updated yet, and that goes for Dynamo packages as well, Python scripts, all those different kind of things as well. So just kind of be patient. 2025 is really nice. It's really fast, especially for Dynamo and just in general. So I'm excited for it to become kind of the norm, and then for .NET 8 to be the thing moving forward. Just because .NET 8 also starts to offer us other things. So one other thing is, if you've ever had Dynamo not load because of a Revit plugin you have installed, it's a nightmare to try to fix. .NET 8 starts to offer up some abilities to load these things kind of siloed from one another. So there's potential for one day not having, it's called DLL hell. There's one potential to not have that problem in Revit in the future, which is really cool. So I think this release of Revit probably doesn't have as many flashy features and Dynamo for Revit, but there is a lot of groundwork there to make some really cool stuff happen.
Awesome, man. Before we wrap up, I know we mentioned that you have been working at Parallax for 6 years, but you also do your own thing on Design Tech Unraveled. Did I do it right? Yes.
Yeah,
I'm so used to 60 Seconds Revit still in my mind, but it's Design Tech Unraveled. And I believe you have
away a lot of brand equity there. No, I'm just kidding.
It's all good. And I think you wanted to mention a couple courses and a couple things you've been doing on the Dynamo front and that. So I don't know. I want to give you a chance to shout that out before we wrap it up.
For sure. So yeah, I mean, all of my stuff that I kind of showed today too, it is all open source, so we can include that in the notes below. So Rhythm's open source, Monocle. I have a plugin called What the Din, which actually shows you which Dynamo version on your ribbon. It's that little 3.0. It adds that for you, and then if you were to want to navigate to your package path, you can actually do that. So it'll show it, and you click on it, and it'll open your package path for you.
Nice.
I found myself always navigating to that folder, so I added a plugin for it. So those are all open source and available to you. I also have my website, which is designtechunraveled.com, but then I also have courses as well. So there's kind of the two things there. I have beginner Dynamo courses, Python Dynamo courses, and C# Dynamo courses on there. I also do YouTube videos about all the updates I have about Dynamo. And like you said, it used to be called 60-Second Revit, and then I kind of changed it to be a little more broad. But I always talk about the same stuff anyway, so I don't know,
That's okay.
So that's out there too. And if you're interested in learning about Dynamo, these are courses that I've made as well on there.
Fantastic.
And yeah,
awesome.
A lot of people have learned that way.
And I will make sure to put links of all of this below. So thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. Just checking the chat, make sure we don't have any other questions. Thank you guys in the chat that have joined us today. And yeah, John, have a great weekend, man. And I really appreciate you coming on. Everyone check out all the links below and say hi to John on Twitter and in the Dynamo forum. And yeah, I hope everyone has an awesome weekend. Thank you guys for joining again. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Head on over to community.bimafterdark.com to check that out. And we have another live episode next week. So I'll see you then. Have a great one, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.